Sebastian Maniscalco.
My wife and I went to go see Hamilton on Broadway.
It Ain't Right Tour 2024.
Oh my God, it is amazing. We saw it. Oh, it changed me it changed me. Now, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, I ain't gonna like this.
Sebastian Maniscalco, live on stage in Des Moines, Wells Fargo Arena, December 15th, 2024. Get tickets now at livenation.com. For more, visit sebastianlive.com.
The holiday tradition, a Birkwood Farm ham. It's the highlight of the meal, the centerpiece of the table. It's what brings families together. The Iowa tradition from Iowa farmers. Birkwood Farms hams are gluten, MSG, allergen, and nitrate free. Buy yours now at the Birkwood Farm store on the south side of Ankeny or at betterpork.com. Order yours today. Your family's favorite holiday memory, a Birkwood Farm ham.
Murph and Andy, proudly presented by Ramsey Subaru and BMW of Des Moines. Live and on demand across Iowa everywhere. From the Channel Seed Studios, this is Murph and Andy. Murph and Andy, connected by cellular advantage.
Let's do it. It is Murph and Andy here, presented by Ramsey Subaru and BMW of Des Moines, along with Andy Fales and AD. I'm Keith Murphy, and Andy, we reached Sebastian Maniscalco himself today. Matt Van Winkle and Iowa Everywhere put out a notice trying to get to the bottom of some of this Hamilton joke that we've heard how many times? Would you guess?
More than we can count.
Yeah, a lot.
18 times.
AD, let's roll the explanation.
My wife and I, generally speaking, always have to ask each other questions when we see a movie because no one knows what's going on. And Hamilton was kind of like the pinnacle of that, where during the intermission, we looked at each other and we're like, do you know what's going on? And she's like, no. I'm like, all right, let's just go get some oysters. You know, like we left at intermission. So yeah, Hamilton for us was way over our head. And we couldn't understand any of the songs or what they were saying or anything like that.
That's a no. They walked out on Hamilton.
I thought in the joke, though, his wife was talking about how it changed her.
No.
That's another woman that he's talking about?
Yeah, somebody else talking about
yeah.
it. So they decide to go, and he's like, I'm not going to like this. And apparently did not like it. Walked out.
I stay out of that stuff. That's not for me. That ticket is wasted on me. My wife and daughter absolutely loved Hamilton. They love it. I just stay out of that conversation. I stay in my lane. It's not for me. And I'm not going to improve it for them if I go. So I graciously give up that ticket if I get it, and I give it to my mother-in-law or somebody else that will appreciate it more.
I've never seen it. I watched it on television, and I'm right there with Sebastian. And I've been told by people who went like, oh, you got to go in person. I tried to watch the TV production of it, and I was like, yeah, this ain't for me, or however he says it.
You're not going to like it in person either. I know you well enough. Just
really?
Like Andy, it'd be a wasted ticket on you.
Just lost me at musical.
I've been to some musicals when I was a kid, and I did like them. I mean, you know, Bye Bye Birdie and The Music Man and stuff. And I can remember liking those musicals. I feel like, though, that time of my life has passed, and I just won't like it anymore.
It's funny. I didn't grow up with them at all, and it wasn't until I met my wife. Actually, we saw Wicked at the Civic Center, like one of our first dates, and that was the first musical I'd ever seen. And I was like, wow, I kind of like this. And now I'm all in. I saw Wicked in the theater over the weekend.
I loved Grease. I think that might be the end of my love of musicals. I was young at the time, though, and had a crush on Olivia Newton-John. I think I would rather rake the leaves than go to Wicked, even in this weather. Like that sounds terrible to me. And AD, you liked it?
Loved it. Yeah, it was fantastic. It was awesome.
All right, Sebastian Maniscalco mentioned Oysters, and Guest House Tavern and Oyster American Restaurant in West Des Moines sets the table for sports and more. So here's what we have coming up today. Cyclones will play for the Big 12 championship and a spot in the college football playoff. Iowa punks Nebraska again. And cold weather games can be fun. That's all ahead on Murph and Andy here in the Channel Seed Studios.
That's a pretty nice place sitting there. I like that.
it
I'll
is.
sit down to eat that podcast.
Yeah. Well, I might even eat an oyster with that podcast. Maybe.
I love raw oysters. Do you like
yeah.
raw oysters? I can't say
I don't.
I'm liking those. Yeah.
No,
Andrew,
it
you like
reminds me of the worst
Love
cold I ever had.
they're like, they're just one of those foods that you just have to kind of trust others who like them and try them. And then oh my God, I love them. I just love them. And they used to be like on like happy hour. You could get them for like 25 cents a piece at certain places in St. Louis. And we would go, and I once ate 6 dozen oysters.
6 dozen oysters.
One
My
sitting.
wife, Jenny, loves oysters. Loves oysters. She's excited to go out to the Guest House Tavern and Oyster American restaurant, try some oysters, because she loves oysters. When we go to Boston, it's like off the airplane and straight to a place to get oysters. So, but for me, it's like,
They're so good.
yeah, that's what an oyster.
I slurp them with like the shell and all, no cocktail sauce. Get that oyster liquor in there, or an oyster shooter. Andrew, you ever had one of those?
Yeah, we
That's,
had one of those in New Orleans.
That's vodka.
shooter.
That's a shot of vodka with a raw oyster dropped into it and a drop of Tabasco sauce on the top, and you
Fantastic.
Chef's kiss.
slurp it.
Time for high or low since the last show.
Presented by Wealth Charter Retirement Planning and Tax.
All right, Wealth Charter in Ankeny, simplifying wealth for so many people in Iowa and beyond. Andy, high or low?
Okay, so this one's going to take a hairpin turn. I had 2 Friendsgivings over the weekend.
That's a lot.
But great friends all around. Everybody's so generous, inviting us to be a part of it all. Our kids went to both of the events. They had fun with everybody else's kids. It was a wonderful weekend. But, and here comes the hairpin turn. When's the last time you had to get re-drunk? First, I should define re-drunk. Like there's getting drunk again, within, a couple of days of each other, and there's getting re-drunk. Like it's not, you're drunk and then you're starting to sober up and then you take it back up again. I'm talking about like you've sobered up, okay, from the night before. You're not feeling real good though. Not ready to drink again. But you go to an event where everybody else feels great and they're drinking, and you have to force yourself to get re-drunk. And that's what happened.
So this isn't
on
hair
Saturday.
of the dog. Re-drunk and hair of the dog, 2 different things.
I mean, there's a little hair of the dog element in that you're trying to forget about it. And I mean, I wasn't seriously hungover or anything. I just wasn't ready to start again.
You do realize you don't have to drink.
Oh, yes, you do.
No, you
Yeah,
don't.
it was a Friendsgiving. There was all kinds of good. I mean, I had a cold 12-pack of beer.
What about a cold 12-pack of NA beer?
No, I can't. I don't even understand why that exists. That's like caffeine-free Red Bull. I mean, what's the point? So
Well, it's to give you the taste of beer without the
but
alcohol.
It doesn't taste good though. And
Many people who are trying to drink less, or in some cases, alcoholics who choose to not drink anymore.
I know. All right,
Have
we
some
always got to
NA.
throw that in there. Yeah. Well, they're just so addicted to the taste of beer that they have to have that.
Yeah, or maybe they're driving and
I
they
don't know.
still want to have a beer in a glass, so
It
they
doesn't
look like
taste
they're
the
being
same, though.
social.
I did have an NA beer on Friday night, though. I didn't realize
There
it was
you
an
go.
NA beer, but I was like, this is like the lightest IPA I've ever had. And my friend Jeff was like, oh,
That's really
you
light.
just drank a NA IPA. And I had to think about it for a second. I was like, what does that all stand for? Oh, yeah. Okay. Non-alcoholic India Pale Ale. There you go. But anyway, so I got to work. I got up early yesterday. We got all the way back, and you and I both worked a long day. I was spent, so I didn't have a real restful weekend. I got to rally a little bit, but it was a good weekend. I'm glad I participated.
So is that a high or a low?
That's a low because I'm dragging
re-drunk.
today. Yeah,
The
because the
re-drunk.
re-drunk. The re-drunk is hard when you're in
Yeah.
your 50s.
I'm going high because I just had a fantastic weekend. I mean, I love Thanksgiving, but the whole weekend was just great. Colin is back from college, got to hang out with some of our other boys. We had so much fun. We had family over for the Iowa game against Nebraska at a big watch party. That was fun. We went to Top Golf, and it's I think it's 20 degrees at this time, but it's working. And that's not great golf form there by Colin.
No, it looks like he's going to swing right over the top of that. He might hit the carpet in between the two balls.
Yeah.
Which ball is he aiming at? I can't even tell.
The one
On the
farthest
tee?
away from him. Yeah.
Okay, I think he's digging into that carpet.
Yeah, so we went to Top Golf. That was a blast. And while we were at Top Golf, Colin, when he's not swinging the club, is just fixated on the Arizona State Arizona game, rivalry game. Also mattered a lot to Iowa State fans. But Colin was confident the Sun Devils were going to win that game. And boy, the Sun Devils looked good. They won that game, moved into the Big 12 championship game. And then we waited for Iowa State. And then we left Top Golf and went straight up to Ames, where we mistakenly thought we were going to just cruise right into the parking lot. And it's as backed up as I've been in traffic there in years. We were about 90 minutes before kickoff as we arrived, coming off the interstate there in Ames to take the exit up to Jack Trice Stadium. Thought it would just be a cruise right up, but with it that cold, thousands of people had the same idea of arriving late, minimizing their time out there in the frigid weather. We did our best to dress for it, and it was fun for a while. Now the second half, it went, as you said, Andy. First of all, the temperature did drop some more, but the second half it really started to kick in. But we had many layers, and we had boots and snow pants. Jenny tapped out about midway through the second quarter. She had just said, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And then after a while, it does settle in. So this, for those watching, this is inside the Sukup Center. This is halftime. But the second half crowd was almost this big in there, Jenny amongst them. There were no chairs left, only standing, but they had big screens in there. There were a lot of people watching the big screens, not just for the bar, but because it was really cold out there. But I thought Friday night in Iowa City at Kinnick Stadium and Saturday at Jack Trice Stadium in Ames, I thought those were pretty good crowds considering the weather in both places. Anybody who thought that Iowa State crowd was going to look like 2004 against Missouri, it did not.
No, it didn't look like that, and it didn't sound like that on TV. It was very loud. You could see some of the gaps in the upper corners, and I think we all kind of expected those. But other than that, I mean, that crowd was into the game. Late returning for the third quarter, we'll point out, probably understandable, but still loud, and the Iowa crowd was loud, and that was a blackout that worked pretty well. So, I mean, I think everybody kind of clearly they listened to our show and brought extra clothes, and it's all about like the footwear. It starts with the footwear. If your feet are warm, if you're standing on good thick soles, you're gonna be off to a good start. And then that hat, and as you could see, as Murph kind of transformed as the game went on, to the point where he looked like a vagrant who would be arrested in downtown Des Moines and taken to a shelter.
That's really a lot.
It doesn't matter, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how you look. If you're warm, you're winning. So you just bring enough stuff to actually get yourself warm, and then it's all gravy from there.
I was in the Sukup Center at halftime, and a guy said to me, he goes, "Hey, Murph and Andy fan here, love you on Iowa everywhere." And he pulled up his shirt. I didn't know what he was doing. Yeah. And it took him like 4 layers to get to his Murph and Andy t-shirt from the merch store.
Thank God.
But like he forgot the layer. Like, I don't know where I didn't know where this
I was going to show you like an open heart surgery scar or something.
Yeah, it could. All right, interact on YouTube. Email Murph_Andy at IowaEverywhere.com, and on X, it's Murph_Andy. It is all powered by the Cellular Advantage, proudly representing U.S. Cellular since 1993, now with 35 local locations. Let's get the buzz here on a Monday.
The Buzz. Brought to you by Logier Heating and Cooling.
Speaking of Logier Heating and Cooling, I saw John, the owner, this weekend over at one of our many stops. We were over at G-Migs watching a little Raiders Chiefs, which of course the Chiefs found a way to win against all odds. But what a nice guy. He was there with his wife. Enjoyed seeing him. Appreciate Logier Heating and Cooling. Iowa State beats Kansas State. That's the buzz. The Cyclones will play arguably the biggest game in Cyclone football history, or is there just no argument? I don't think there's an argument.
I don't think there's an
this
argument.
Is it. Yeah.
What would you argue?
I could see somebody arguing 2000 against Oklahoma. I've heard some Cyclone fans say Iowa State was in the college football playoff conversation. That was
2000
Cyclone fans. I'm sorry, 2020.
That was such a different year. I just think when you look at this achievable 12-team playoff, and just everything about it is bigger too. I mean, there's some of these people that try to make an argument for 1908 or what.
Come on,
man. Go look at a picture of football being played in 1908. It looks like they're playing with a volleyball. I mean, the ball is rounder than a rugby ball.
And they're playing Simpson.
Yeah, or whatever. I mean, like schools that don't even exist anymore.
Barbershop college.
There's 1,000 people there.
Yeah, this is the biggest game in Iowa State football history. Doesn't mean it's the best team in Iowa State football history or the most talented. It might be the most resilient, but you have a Big 12 championship at stake. Mm-hmm. Iowa State can win that. And Iowa State wins that Big 12 championship. Iowa State becomes the first team from the state of Iowa in the college football playoff, which very few people would ever have predicted. And some of these long-suffering Cyclone fans can't even believe this conversation is taking place. I mean, Iowa State is a win away from the Big 12 championship and the playoff. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, the playoff has expanded, and the Big 12 conference has changed. And it does matter that, this is a conference championship game where Iowa State isn't going to go up against an Oklahoma team that's ranked, number 3, and they're not ranked at all. And, no one thinks that there's a 31 point spread or something. I mean, no, this is a winnable game. This is a game with a win that would could likely lead to something beyond their wildest dreams. So I don't think there's any argument here. This is the biggest game ever.
I agree, and it's
people flinch at that a little bit because they're like, oh, God,
133 years. Are you sure? Have you checked all 133 years? Well, that's one of the things about Iowa State's football history. There's not that many games to check.
You can make a pretty educated guess without opening the books at all.
So this is cool coming up. In 2020, as we talked about, Iowa State did play a competitive game against Oklahoma. That game was in doubt right up until
the
final drive with Brock Purdy.
I'm talking more about 2004, in that era.
Right. He threw an interception at the end of that game. Oklahoma goes on to win. And then Iowa State goes to the Fiesta Bowl, but Iowa State's not even playing the Pac-12's top team in that Fiesta Bowl. That's not Iowa State's fault, but Oregon is like it's passed on to Oregon to go play in that. I think Oregon was like maybe 5-3 or something. The whole season felt different.
Was a mess.
It was the COVID season. Yeah. It was a mess. Let's get to the rewind here on a Saturday night at Jack Trice Stadium. Iowa State against Kansas State, top 25 matchup. And at the end of the half, Rocco Becht, who was not efficient in that cold passing the football as far as completion percentage, but one of the things he did when he made a play, either with his legs or with his arms, they seemed to come at big times.
Rocco, a designed run behind Hansen, left side, and he gets to the goal line, touchdown! Rocco Becht running right behind Carson
So Beck scores to make it 24-14. That audio is courtesy of Learfield. John Walters on the call for the Cyclone Radio Network. Kobe Gaines with WHO 13 provided that video for us. So 24-14. They're wearing those blackout uniforms again. They'd look so good with just little cardinal and gold accents in there like we saw with the white uniforms, but time to give that up, right?
I mean, I was watching closely with a group of people, and we were all kind of looking for signs that the cold was bothering the players. And you could see signs here and there. And I think Rocco Beck's accuracy problems probably had something to do with that cold weather. I mean, he often can struggle with that, but there were just some passes that just, they really look like they needed a little bit of touch, a little bit of finesse. That's what's hard to pull off in the cold weather, right? I mean, you can find speed and strength and shake off big hits and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to kind of like the fine tunings of, running around precisely, throwing the ball, catching the ball, fingertips, that kind of stuff. I think that kind of stuff starts to suffer when the weather gets really cold like that. And that's what I saw as kind of maybe the most telltale sign that the players were feeling that cold.
I was surprised how many players did not even have long sleeves on.
Yeah.
And this is bitter cold there. And I was sitting near my friend Randy Cooner, and we were talking about just, can you imagine getting hit in this weather? Because just your skin feels frozen, and just to take a big hit and get back up. But they were out there battling, and that put Iowa State on top. And then as every time Kansas State seemed like they might be changing the trajectory of this game, Iowa State would make a play or Kansas State would make a mistake. And there are a few mistakes bigger in this game than this bizarre safety. Give Iowa State credit for staying with it and continuing to pursue Avery Johnson. And I don't know what he was thinking.
Avery Johnson in the shotgun. They're going to blitz. Here they come. Johnson in trouble. Big chase by Ellis. He's hit the end zone. He throws it away. That should be grounding. That should be a safety. It did not get to the line of scrimmage. Just throwing it away. He was in the end zone. This should be a safety.
It was a safety. And it's kind of, for those of us old enough that can remember the old Fran Tarkington scrambles, or Doug Flutie would do that sometimes, where you just keep winding backwards. But credit to the Cyclone containment there. He kept zigzagging back, but he never could get out of it. And that was a really costly mistake for the Wildcats.
Yeah, he's young, and I think every time he's trying to survey the field and find somebody, and then he would look back at the defensive lineman, and every time he would look back to the defensive lineman, they were a little bit closer to him, so he would have to circle back again, and then just, eventually runs out of room. It's definitely a young player mistake. He should have gotten rid of that ball when he was a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. But, credit John Haycock's defense. I felt like they flexed in the second half of that game, put more pressure on that quarterback. I mean, Avery Johnson, right? That's right. His name. He was a good athlete, a good runner.
He's got talent.
The type of player that can really give Iowa State's defenses a lot of problems. But Haycock seemed to turn up the heat on the pass rush, bring more players, not all the time, but on certain plays. And I thought, I was glad to see that, because there are times where it's just feels like it's just obvious that they've got to rush another guy, got to send another guy, or they have that spy out wide right and he just stands there. You're like, well, just go at the quarterback. Well, finally they did, and it started resulting in plays like that.
Here is the final call from John Walters as Iowa State beats Kansas State and wins its 10th game.
And for the first time in school history, Iowa State has a 10-win season. And with it, possibly a spot in the Big 12 championship game. The fans are rushing the field as Iowa State improves to 10-2 on the season. And if BYU can knock off Houston, then Iowa State will go to the Big 12 championship game in Dallas.
Wow. Yeah. And so close to 11-1. Really should have beaten Texas Tech for sure. Just Kansas dominated that game. So I can't do any revisionist history there of that loss. But 10-2, it is the first 10-win season ever. Should point out, as we did last night on Sound Off, Iowa State didn't even start playing 10 games in a season until 1955. 10 games for a while, then it became 11. Now it's 12. So there is some context there. But going into the season, the only 3 Power 5 programs that had not won 10 games in a season were Iowa State, Indiana, and Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt is the last team standing without a 10-win season. So this is another big box checked by Matt Campbell to just, if nothing else, just take this ammunition away from your rivals who always throw it out there in condescending fashion, as rivals will do.
Yeah, Campbell has cost Hawkeye fans a number of leverage points over Cyclone fans, but you know this was a 10-win season that was well earned. I mean, they beat Iowa. They had a number of those games in there that looked like they had lost their grip on that game or were about to, and they fought back and won. They had a ton of injuries. They went through so many players with this in this season, and they just kept, sometimes it was ugly, sometimes it was beautiful, but they, game in and game out for the most part, found a way to win all of these games, win these 10 games, and it was a lot of fun to witness.
Yeah, and we might need to rethink this. Kansas State has something over Iowa State.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore.
They don't. Nope, they don't. Chris Kleiman has not been good against Iowa State. Matt Campbell has been good against him. I will say, after the week, and we'll get more into this later, but after the weekend that we had with, it seemed like every single game there was a fight at midfield or the handshake line or whatever after the games. I mean, these two teams are rivals. I wouldn't say they're heated rivals, but they're big rivals. And they consider each other big rivals. They both won in this game, and you didn't see that at center at the middle of the field. At least I didn't see any of that between these two games. Maybe it was just they were so stinking cold they just wanted to go inside. But I also think it probably reflected on their coaches a lot. I think Matt Campbell and Chris Kleiman are guys that I think they're classy guys, and they insist that their players follow a certain, sportsman's protocol. So I was glad to see that.
They had a big embrace. John Walters in that final call doesn't know yet if Iowa State is in the Big 12 championship game. Of course, now we know, but that is just one more sign. There's just too many teams in these mega conferences. And even though the Big 12 plays more games than some of the other conferences, still you're sitting there at the end of the night potentially with a 4-way tie, which is what happens. So many people confused about why would the 4-way tie? What's the tiebreaker? Why is it a problem for Iowa State if BYU loses this game? And it's just the tiebreaker process. It's not easy to explain. It's crazy that with the 4-way tie that did happen, Iowa State had not played any of the other 3 teams during the season. We'll play Arizona State next week, but that's just too bad. You have to sit around, as most people did who had an interest. We're still up watching BYU at 12:45 in the morning to see if the Cougars finish off the other Cougars from Houston, and they did. And then Iowa State knows that it's in, but as I was watching Kobe Gaines work his way through the locker room talking to the Cyclone players, most of the questions are answered in that conditional circumstance of, well, if BYU takes care of business or if BYU wins, we'll be in the championship game. But they can't truly celebrate that because they don't know yet, and Houston gets out to an early lead. So that is something that at some point hopefully will get easier.
I mean, I don't think that the Big 12 looks at this as a problem, though, do you?
Maybe not.
You had more teams feel like they were in it until the very end. And man, we watched Big 12 football until there was literally no more to watch on Saturday night. And the Big 12 is not going to think that's a problem.
That's a good point. Yeah. Also, you constantly hear about Well, the Big 12, it got so much easier with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. But it is interesting, all those years, 15 or so, Texas won like one Big 12 title outright, go to the SEC, won it in the first year. Or got
Iowa State did. Matt
game.
Campbell's teams did well against Texas, and Oklahoma wasn't very good in the SEC this year.
All right, here is Noel, Rocco, Porter, Freeler, and Campbell after the game.
I couldn't be prouder of the senior class. For us to do what we've done this season and lead the way we have, it's been very special, and I wouldn't want to do it with any other group. This group is like it's brotherhood, and we'll cherish these moments forever.
I honestly didn't know that we never won 10 games, until mid-season, and at that point, I think that was our goal, was just kind of making history in this program, and just seeing where it leads us and seeing where it takes us. And right now, it's hopefully taking us to the Big 12 championship next week.
2 years ago, this program was 4-8. We were in a bad spot, and being able to fight through all that, and kind of no one really believed in us at the beginning of the year. We were picked to finish middle of the Big 12, but to prove everyone wrong, it just is a testament to everyone's work,
all the sacrifice that we've made, time, effort, energy. Man, it's all from moments like these. So we get the opportunity to go down in Arlington, we're going to make the most of it for sure.
Everything this team's needed to do and everything this team's had to do to put itself in position to be where we are right now, our kids have done it, and they haven't wavered, they haven't quit, and I'm really proud of them.
He should be. Iowa State will play Arizona State for the Big 12 championship. That is Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Iowa time. From Arlington, Texas. I know many Cyclone fans are trying to work their way down there for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It is kind of a reminder of how difficult it's going to be for some of these successful programs who do well in the playoff to navigate this week to week. Finding out Sunday that you're in the Big 12 championship game, trying to make last-minute flight arrangements, hotels, none of this is cheap. But Cyclone fans they'll make their way down there. There'll be a good crowd. It's certainly, if you're picking one, you'd pick this over the bowl game, right? And assuming there is a bowl game if Iowa State doesn't win.
Yeah, and it's drivable. It's like 10 and a half hours, 11 hours. Yeah, that's a haul.
Are you hedging your bets though that there may be a college football playoff game that you're going to have to travel to in less than a month?
Oh,
yeah, you're going to pick one.
I don't think you'd go through life like that, Andrew.
Yeah.
You say, "Yeah, I'm in. I will." You will make it work somehow, right? You go to this game, and then if you win this game, you're on such a high. You figure out a way to get to the next one.
The Big 12 and certainly the TV networks were hoping for that Houston BYU upset, because then that would put Colorado and all that star power and the Heisman Trophy winner, in strong likelihood, into that Big 12 championship game. Mm-hmm. But if that's not your interest, this is a fun matchup. I mean, you have Iowa State picked for the upper half, but the middle pack upper half of the Big 12 conference, and Arizona State was picked for dead last out of 16 teams, 16th out of 16, and they're in what is essentially now a pick'em championship game. They've never played before. And they're in the same conference now. That's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And, as far as teams being picked to do poorly and doing much better than anybody thought, I mean, that's going to come in this new world of college football. I mean, these teams change over so many players from year to year. I mean, Iowa State returned a lot of players, but other teams changed. I mean, look at Michigan and Washington this year. I mean, they change a coach and they'll lose everybody. They get a coach who's got one good year under his belt or one decent year under his belt. Then he picks up a bunch of steam. The second year adds a bunch of players that nobody knows what to make of. And they can turn their fortunes around. And I think this is a year-to-year world of college sports that we have right now. It is year-to-year.
Before we leave Iowa State's best win of the season, is it at Iowa or home against Kansas State?
I think it's at Iowa. I think the home win against Baylor is probably right there also.
Baylor ends on a 6-game winning streak.
Yeah. I think I'll still go with Iowa, though. I mean, it's on the road. That's your arch rival.
Iowa's 8-4.
Iowa finishes 8-4. At that point, looked like it was okay at the quarterback position.
The way it happened.
Yeah, the way it happened.
You're way down.
They come back with this great second half. They put together. They have a couple of really big plays, field goal. I mean, I don't think that's the problem. Is it's been a while since that game happened, right. So that's worn off on us a little bit.
And you do catch Hawkeye fans. You can see the thought bubble go over their head with like, well, Iowa State didn't play anybody worth a damn this season.
Well, I mean, after us in the conference, I mean, yeah,
that's right. I just caught up to that. All right, back to Friday night where Iowa picks up 5 first downs against Nebraska, goes 0 for 10 on third down. 0 for 10 on third down, has 164 total yards, and 72 of those were on one play. Let's go to the rewind of one of the most unlikely wins a team could ever have under this offensive production. Yet in this series, maybe it's not all that surprising. Here's 72 of those 164 yards on a spectacular run by now declared for the NFL draft, Caleb Johnson.
Another pass play. Throws it behind Caleb Johnson. Caleb breaks through a couple people, gets across the 30. Oh, still going. Ran through a third one, still going. Cuts back to the middle. 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. It's going to be a touchdown. Touchdown, Iowa. Touchdown, Caleb Johnson. How in the world did he do that?
That is a great run. Gary Dolphin on the call, courtesy of Learfield. Blake Hornstein with Hawkeye headquarters at WHBF providing the video there. And that's one of Caleb Johnson's masterpieces. Maybe his, God, he's had some great runs this year. That might be the best one. I realize it's technically a touchdown pass from Jackson Stratton, but he breaks at least 4 tackles.
Yeah, there's at one point he's just dead to rights. 4 different Nebraska defenders. He goes through and past all of them. Don't you just wish that you could have watched that play in a Nebraska living room? Because I'm sure that is the point where they felt it coming. Right?
Starting to change.
Yeah, because this game looked like a football game in Michael Hathaway's side yard where Scott Metcalf is playing, and he's like 3 years older than the rest of us. I think he might have been in high school by that point. And it's just him and Michael Hathaway against, me and the Kopsha boys and like Darren Looters. And
you guys are prepubescent. This guy's got like a beard.
We're little kids. And it's just like it's 2 against 4. And Scott is allowed to throw passes to himself. And we're beating him. And then all of a sudden he just starts to turn it on, and there's a damn thing that we can do about it. And he and Michael beat us again. I mean, you're just like, this looks like the older brother letting the little brother win for a long time. And then just when he has set the scene for the most drama possible, he starts the comeback. And the little brother melts down in glorious red-faced fashion.
AD, what was the question at one point? Could 1,000 5-year-olds tackle Derrick Henry?
Yeah, right. Like how many 5-year-olds would it take to tackle Derrick Henry? How many Huskers would it take?
That's what
to get Caleb Johnson down.
That's where it started, though. And you just looked at that and you're like, "Oh my God!"
And
is this going to happen?
They had missed the field goal. Mm-hmm. And we've heard from Nebraska in the past, once these things start to happen to them, they get in that mindset, and it really does kind of fall apart. Snowball. They had missed that field goal on the opening drive of the second half to go up 13-0.
And missed it, just really missed it, too.
The muffed punt that wasn't actually a muffed punt, and if the Nebraska team knew that their guy hadn't touched it, they probably don't dive for the ball and then actually do touch it to muff the punt. They still hold Iowa to just 3 on that, but it is starting to kind of roll downhill a little bit there.
Yeah, it's the is Nebraska going to find a way to lose again? And the answer to that question is yes. And it comes down to, again, a game-winning field goal attempt. And adding intrigue to this is the guy who's going to attempt the game-winning field goal in the freezing cold for Iowa was so ineffective in last year's game that he was benched, and they brought in somebody we haven't heard of before or since, Marshall Meter, who ends up hoisting the Heroes Trophy last year.
Not sure where he is this year.
He's gone right back into witness protection.
Yeah.
But here is the game-winning field goal attempt by Drew Stevens.
The game comes down, at least in regulation, to this 53-yard field goal attempt by Drew Stevens. The snap, the spot, the kick is on the way. It is good! Iowa wins it 13-10. Somebody had to win it. One of these amazing defenses had to go down, and I'm happy to tell you it's an Iowa Hawkeye victory. The hex over the Huskers continues.
He's right about that. He also, Dolph, our good friend, kind of catches himself like, yes, somebody had to, these amazing defenses.
Yeah. This shit game finally gets wiped.
Here is Stevens, Jay Higgins, and Kirk Ferentz on the kick by, again, a guy who was benched in this game last year.
I was looking forward to this game just because it's, first of all, I don't like Nebraska. They always mess with us pregame. I mean, they didn't this year, but usually, like the previous years, they mess with us pregame. It sucks when somebody else is out there doing a job. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like, that does suck, especially when you train all year round, like, doing it. So, yeah, this one felt really good. But I was confident, ready to go out there and do it.
That's our guy. Like, we understand he's got one job, but we do understand how hard it is. So when how successful he is, we don't take that for granted.
Kicked with great confidence last week in windy conditions, and tonight that wasn't a chip shot, but I think all of us felt like, yeah, he'll do it.
He did it, and Kirk Ferentz getting emotional about a game-winning kick.
I didn't worry about that kick. I didn't. I mean, he has been like 53 yards is like his sweet spot this season.
He's been really good.
He barely made that kick. I mean, that was close. But I just felt like, it felt we skipped over that sack, that has to go down in the annals of the most Iowa versus Nebraska plays of this rivalry's history.
Urbandale
Max
kid,
Llewellyn.
Max Llewellyn.
Yeah, Max Llewellyn, right.
Yeah, strip sack.
Sacks him and gets the ball, which is like the only thing, right, that could happen at that point.
That's how they do
for
it.
Iowa to be able to win that in regulation. It was like there's 10,000 different plays are possible on a football field in a game. That's the only one that can basically foil Nebraska. I mean, other than, I guess, like pick up the fumble and run it in for a touchdown, but that's it. The guy gets totally stopped, loses enough yards, and loses the ball, all without taking too much time off the clock. It was like, God. It was funny, right? I mean, it's funny when you watch this so many times and you're like, what's going on here? Is there a higher power at
Many
play?
of these games this past weekend, more than ever, had some kind of fight or controversy in them. There were like 5 midfield incidents in rivalry games across college football. The Iowa-Nebraska one didn't really receive much attention outside this area, in part because there's not really anything at stake here other than what's at stake for the two teams' pride and trying to win and all of that. But this didn't get much national attention because there was a controversy, and most of us weren't aware of it until after the game when we heard from Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. But what happened, the thing that started to go viral, and it was shot by a few different people, but the one I saw it from and want to give credit to, Curtis Feeder of KGAN, he had a great shot of captains from both teams walking up to each other. This is it right here. Hawkeye Football reposted this on X and other places. And I at first thought it was from Hawkeye Football, but it's actually from Curtis Feeder of KGAN. So courtesy and credit to him, and nice job, Curtis. Way to do your job well. But he gets this. He's in the right place at the right time. And you can see absolute denial by all the Nebraska captains. And Higgins holds his hand up there for a while. Like, are you really not going to shake my hand here before kickoff? I mean, are you really going to have this bad of sportsmanship?
And it's interesting because if you look down there in the end, the guy in the parka, the black guy in the toque and the parka there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that is. Do you guys know who that is?
That would be the honorary captain.
Yeah.
So that's a former player, and I don't remember who the former player is. Somebody will let us know on our comments over here.
The look on his face tells you exactly what's going on there, right? I mean, he's like, okay, you guys are going to pull this bullshit here. Yeah, you're going to do that? You childish losers. I mean, he's laughing that off. He is laughing at the break. You can't see the expressions of the Hawkeyes because they've got their helmets on, but you could see he tells you there what's going on. He's like, okay, these guys are honestly just not shaking their hands. They are not giving any expression here. They're really going to do this. They're doing this. They're serious about doing this.
Ed Miles, according to Andrew Boat, Ed Miles
okay.
is who that is. So thank you for that. AD.
He's watching that, and he's just like,
yeah.
okay. Look, if I had been watching this from the sidelines, I don't know if I'd have believed it. I'm up close. I'm seeing you guys do this right now. You really did do this. You guys are babies.
For the most part, this played out as you would expect it, where everybody takes a position based on their fandom. Hawkeye fans were outraged. Nebraska fans were defensive and said this happened because of how badly Iowa has behaved over the years or treated Nebraska over the years. So everybody goes into their biased positions, as you expect from rivalry fandom, but not everybody. I did see a number of Nebraska fans and even some media personalities who were absolutely embarrassed by this display of bad sportsmanship, whatever the circumstances. Whatever you think the reason is to behave this way, it's a bad look. And there were many people who did own that and say, Tom Osborne would never stand for that. You know, Jay Higgins made a point of Kirk Ferentz would never stand for this or have his players go out there and do that. Now, I don't know that Matt Rule was aware that they were going to do this, but it is a bad look. We end up finding out the justification that Nebraska uses for this is that they tried to pray on the midfield logo as a group. They all kneel on the logo and they have a group prayer for anybody who chooses to take part in it. And this has become something that is a nose hair to other programs. They don't like Nebraska doing this. Yes, it sounds silly. It's a logo, but you're the visitor. You know it's going to antagonize them, and you do it anyway. You could pray at the 30. You could pray in your end zone. You can pray in the locker room if you're not trying to make a public display of it. You can pray anywhere you want. But Nebraska keeps insisting on praying at midfield on the logo, which, ironically, Kirk Ferentz didn't want for a couple of decades. But the logo is there now. They want to kneel on it, pray on it, and knowing this and knowing that Nebraska and USC got into a little bit of a scuffle a couple of weeks ago over this exact thing, Iowa put security around the logo and would not let Nebraska on the logo. So they prayed like 10 or 20 yards away. So that is part of the background for anybody who hasn't heard that. Your thoughts on praying at midfield?
Well, I agree. You can do that anywhere. They're trying to make a public display by doing this. You want to do this at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln? Great. It's your field. This is somebody else's field. Iowa has plans for their own field in the pregame. They control that space. End of story. You can go pray in the end zone. As you say, you can do it in the locker room. I don't know why you need to make a public display of it, like you get more credit for it that way or whatever. But you can do this you can do your pregame routine, whatever it might be, in your own space when you're on somebody else's field. And if there's already been a problem with it,
There has.
then you have to understand that the hosting team has the right to try to do something to keep there from being another problem like that. So that makes sense. And, if Matt Rule wants to make a separate statement about that in the post game, then fine. He has the right to do that. He can say something about that. But to allow his players to go out there and make a mockery of a pregame handshake, and don't tell me for a minute that he didn't know what was going on out there. He's got eyes. He can see what's going on at the half. Even if he's distracted by something else, there's no way that some assistant coach didn't fill him in on what just happened on the field. And then he says something about that in the post-game locker room. You say it, I think first comment, you say something about that. That is what is leading Iowa fans and other objective fans who watched, not that Iowa fans are objective, but Iowa fans and objective fans who saw this scene. That is what is leading them to say right now, this tells me there is a culture problem at Nebraska, that you would have a coach that would allow that, because we know coaches, I think all of the coaches that we know best in this state would not ever allow that. If that ever happened on a Dan McCarney team, he would have had put his foot so far up his player's ass, the breath would have smelled like shoe polish. I mean, he would have been so... Kirk Ferentz would never stand for that. Matt Campbell would not stand for that. First of all, it goes against the cardinal rule of no locker room material. No locker room corkboard material. Stuff that motivates the other team before the game is even started. And that is a cardinal rule in college football. You don't do that.
And that does apply here.
And this is indefensible, too. I mean, this is not shaking the opponent's hand before the game.
Here's Jay Higgins after the game as captured on film by Blake Hornstein.
I'll remember that handshake probably for the rest of my life, because I think that was the first time ever that I didn't get a handshake as going out there at midfield, and it was just great to give him a final handshake.
I think there's just a significant difference between Kirk Ferentz. That's all I'm going to say.
There's also a Nick Jackson there, two senior leaders for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and leads us to a quickie poll from WCI Pools and Spas.
What do you think Nebraska intends when the team preys on the opponent's midfield logo? Is it a centered relationship with God, or is it establishing antagonistic dominance?
Yeah,
it could be both,
display.
Of course, but yeah, it's a display. They're making a point here.
You can do the prayer anywhere.
Yeah. Yep. You can. And you can do it in private. You can do it any number of places. When you are trying to do it on the midfield logo and it's not your logo, you're being a nose hair.
Right. And I think that's really doesn't have to go a lot deeper than that. It's just, that's not your space, right? That's not your field.
Matt Rule is the coach of Baylor for Smack at the Jack, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, probably so.
I believe he is. I believe there's an
so.
incident in that where he had David Montgomery get into it a little bit over, it might even be a handshake type deal, but what's going on with Matt Rule? I think he's a good coach, and I've enjoyed some of his interviews. We've got a Napoleon complex going here, or what's the deal?
He's not a big guy. I don't know. I mean, look, and we should point out, you pointed this out, we should do it again. I don't think this is a Nebraska culture problem. I don't think Nebraska fans would do this kind of thing. I don't think that Tom Osborne's teams would have done that. I'm not sure that any of the previous coaches that we have seen lose to Iowa, and there's been a lot of them. I don't think any of them would have done this other than Matt Rule. And he, the fact that he didn't say anything about it speaks volumes, that he didn't immediately do something about it.
It is. I'll allow for somebody telling me that he didn't know that happened.
At the moment that it happened, there's no way he went the whole game and wasn't aware that had happened before the game.
Boy, Iowa didn't forget that entire game, and then
especially when Jay Higgins walks right up to him after the game and shakes his hand.
Yeah, have you seen?
Like Jay Higgins, he said to Jay Higgins, "Who are you? I don't know you." Oh,
yeah.
Now you do.
Please tell me Jay Higgins said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jay Higgins. I'm the guy who just kicked your ass again, embarrassed
even
you
though
again."
You dominated this game in all the ways except the one that's going to be remembered. Now here's Chris Hassel and Andrew Downs at the start of Instant Iowa Friday night after Iowa found a way to beat Nebraska again.
Oh, my God. I can't believe that just happened. What? Woo, buddy.
Nebraska always finds a way.
Yes, they do.
Don't they? Oh, my God.
I can't believe Iowa just won that game. Oh, my God.
How many
That's
cocktails
the
deep
sound
are
of
these two
joy.
guys?
That's the sound of joy, right?
Sound of something.
Because we were sitting in the studio like this, waiting to. We had no idea what was going to happen at the end of this game.
Yeah.
We're kind of, the emotions are going both ways. Are they going to lose? Is it going to overtime? And on NBC you couldn't see the kick go through.
Oh,
so it was
geez,
just
yeah.
like, what did they just win? And then I was celebrating. We hit live, and away we went.
Speaking of confirmation bias and the way fans see things through the lens of their own team, I got an impassioned letter, direct message on Facebook. I'll get it and read it Wednesday. I forgot to do this, but this viewer was so upset with NBC's play-by-play guy who was clearly anti-Iowa and rooting for Nebraska the whole time. And it's like, that guy is Paul Burmeister,
one
of my good friends, who loves the Hawkeyes, has as much or more respect for Kirk Ferentz than anybody I know, and is a proud University of Iowa alum. If anything, maybe he overdid the objectivity because he doesn't want to seem biased.
Like kind of the
but
coach's
this person
son
was
dilemma.
convinced that that Paul was openly rooting for Nebraska in the game. It's like, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. Berkwood Farms, welcome, bringing back the Bullseye contest for Christmas. This is going to work out for many of you. Your source for premium Berkshire pork products for the holidays: ham, bacon, sausage, meat, sticks, and more. BetterPork.com is the site to go to. And Andy, what are we doing with the Bullseye this time?
Well, remember we used to do the Berkwood Bullseye
in the radio studio.
Yeah, before the holidays in the radio studio. So Berkwood has come over with us now here on Iowa Everywhere, and they wanted us to do that contest. We're like, well, we don't have the radio studio anymore. I'm not going to have some guy in my house here, shooting.
Why not?
Well, we couldn't figure out how to do that. The logistics didn't work. But we put our heads together. Murph thought real hard about this one, and so the way we're going to do it is we're going to take entries for one big contest that we're going to hold on December 20th. So on December 20th, we're going to go out to Northeast 14th Street to the Berkwood Farms store, and we're going to broadcast live, do the show live there that day. Be a Friday really close to Christmas. Everybody's going to be in a great mood. And we're going to invite all the contest entrants that we pick to come and have a big shootout with a bunch of really good prizes at stake, put a big target up on the wall, and then these guys will all get the guns, and they'll get to shoot for their prizes there during our show and go home with something really nice from Berkwood Farms for the holidays.
We're shooting guns on Northeast 14th Street?
The little Nerf soft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not make it sound like it's, real violent.
Be great.
It's the little Nerf soft guns,
I know,
airsoft guns. And so the way we're going to do this is starting on Wednesday. What we want you to do is email us to the email address, which is Andrew.
Murph_Andy.
Yeah.
At iowaeverywhere.com.
Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com. Send us an email telling us how something nice from Berkwood Farms would improve your holiday celebration. And again, don't enter this contest if you don't want to go to this Burkwood Bullseye shootout on December 20th. We only want people there that can actually participate. Come join us that day. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we will pick a winner each day from now until the 20th, gather everybody together on the 20th. We'll have a big old shootout.
And everybody there on the 20th wins something?
Everybody's going to win. They're going to go home with something. Yep.
Something. Okay.
Because we'll make it worth your while to go out there. Because Burkwood Fun, that's a cool store. They have all kinds of neat stuff, and you're going to go home with something nice for the holidays. Now, some of these prizes are going to be better than others, but everybody's going to have
everybody
something.
getting something. Something.
Everybody gets something.
Enough for enter me in the Bullseye, Burkwood Bullseye in the subject line.
I mean, that would technically get you in the running, but if you ramp it up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Give us a reason to pick you.
You want to be fluffed.
Yeah, absolutely.
How something like this would improve your holidays. What would you do with it?
Yeah, tell us a story.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move along here and jump ahead to Confluence, the official beer of Murph and Andy. Hope you enjoyed. I got to stop saying it each Monday. I had a yard yacht this weekend, but I did it again.
I had a few Des Moines IPAs Friday night.
Those are a little stronger. Yeah, they are. And I think I could tell on the air.
I had a long day on Friday, by the way, and
hey, shout out to a
bunch of driving.
Shout out to Buffalo Wild Wings in Iowa City, who had Ross and I do the show from there, and then they broadcasted us on the TVs there as well. That was a lot of fun, and then drove back home and did Instant Iowa with Hassel. So I earned a couple of Des Moines IPAs, Murph.
Yeah, you did a Murph and Andy show that day. You did earn it. All right, let's get some more here on a Monday.
Yep.
But wait, there's more from Either Or Eatery and Patio.
More is brought to you by Either Or Eatery and Patio, 6222 Grand Avenue. They're doing the Tinsel Christmas pop-up there right now. New menu items, all kinds of vintage decorations. You're going to want to check it out. The Ankeny Mills Fleet Farm. I love this. We were talking about how we might have a bit of a return to the great days of brick and mortar Black Friday shopping. Well, that's exactly what they had going on there in Ankeny on Friday. They had over 1,000 people waiting outside. It was really cold, waiting outside for the doors to open on Black Friday. The line, they said, began at 2:40 a.m. Doors didn't open until 5 a.m., so those people were out there trying to save some money. I don't think it was like that crazy mad rush where people got trampled and stuff like that going in the door, but still that's good to see. We need the brick and mortars to keep doing well. There's certain stuff that you gotta see it in person rather than buy it online. You want to pick it up. You want to try it on. Another Thanksgiving is come and gone, and with it, another disaster that resulted from a poorly attempted deep-fried turkey.
Oh, boy.
This one in Weston, Connecticut. Officials say someone tried to deep fry a turkey in their garage. The fire that resulted quickly engulfed the entire home. This is like a fire department display.
Showing why not to do it, right?
Yeah,
that's a fireball.
All the pictures of this actual story burned in the fire.
I didn't used to understand why in the world that is so dangerous, deep frying turkeys, and there's such a high chance that something will go wrong. I mean, you overflow that thing, the oil goes down into the gas burner, catches fire, goes everywhere. I mean, it's an oil fire, so it's really hard to put out. It's a fireball. It's just a huge mess. But then I had a perfectly deep fried turkey. Have you guys ever had perfectly deep fried turkey?
I don't think I have.
It's
awesome.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's so good. You're like, oh, I see why people take the risk.
The fireball.
That's why you do it. This fire, though, burned down the entire home. Fire crews weren't even able to approach the home because it was burning so hot they couldn't get near it. Fortunately, all 25 people who were there celebrating got out. Pets got out. No loss of life. But this house was like just burned to a crisp.
Man.
It was burned as bad as the turkey.
Smells good.
In a follow-up story to a story that we broke here on More last week, on Thursday, the Australian Senate did vote 34-19 to pass the national youth social media ban. The House had passed it by an overwhelming majority. The Senate followed through another big majority, 34-19. It'll take at least a year to go into effect. The ban could see companies fined up to 50 million Australian dollars if they fail to prevent children from having accounts, social media. This is everything, like the whole gamut. I think YouTube is safe at this point, but I have to wonder. I mean, because kids spend a ton of time on YouTube, and you can still do a lot of interacting on YouTube.
It's where they
can almost see
watch
YouTube
screens
being
the most,
included.
I think, at this point.
Yeah, right. It is. It is. It is the latest effort from politicians worldwide to regulate children's social media use, as concerns about its negative impacts on mental health continue to grow. A grocery store in Japan has introduced drinkable mayonnaise. And here it is.
Oh, man.
Peep that out.
Jeez,
Well,
John
packaged-
Sears is going to be trying to order this from Japan.
Really, though? I mean, I like mayonnaise. I don't want to drink mayonnaise.
I don't want to drink mayonnaise.
No. While packaged stylishly, although that's just a kind of a weird package. I mean, that's a squirt bottle squirting out some substance. It's described as rich and sour. The product has received harsh criticism from testers, with one calling it incredibly awful.
I had some spiked eggnog on Thanksgiving, and that was good. That looked a lot like this liquid mayonnaise.
Like the real authentic eggnog with the raw eggs. That stuff's incredible.
Whatever Evan Williams puts in a bottle.
Yeah, that prepackaged stuff. I don't think there's actually any raw eggs in there. Evan Williams. How drunk was he? Tell me,
He was drunk.
Evan Williams was a drunk.
He was drunk. He was drunk all
Jack
the time.
Jack Daniels was a drunk, but Jim Beam was a bigger drunk than Jack Daniels, and Evan Williams was the biggest drunk.
You get
like
those
the cheaper the whiskey
three guys
gets, you know the
together,
drunker
it's like
the guy
Kopcha
is.
brothers.
Belgium has introduced a groundbreaking law, the first of its kind globally, that will provide hookers with official employment contracts, granting them benefits such as maternity leave and pensions. The legislation treats sex work like any other job, offering health insurance, maternity leave, pensions, and sick days to those in the industry. The significant move comes after sex work was decriminalized in 2022. It's estimated that around 30,000 hookers will now receive basic employment rights.
I think the calling in sick is a good idea. I mean, you got a cold or,
Nobody wants to find out they hired a sick
syphilis
hooker.
kicks in or something. You have to take some time off.
Well, where did the bad days start? Well, when I found out that hooker that I hired was
got an STD if they just had benefits.
Influenza B. So we were waxing poetic last week about Pizza Hut, right?
Yeah.
What it was
Old
like
school
back in the
Pizza
day.
Hut.
Old school Pizza Hut. We were trying to describe it to people because Pizza Hut doesn't look anything like that
No,
anymore.
fireplace,
I mean, nothing like
salad bar, all of it.
I'd kind of forgotten what it looked like, but thank God this couple has turned their garage into a vintage Pizza Hut. Put it on TikTok. Let's just take a look here. The video games,
Yeah, the glass over
the
the
red
table.
booths. I'd forgotten about the checkered tablecloths, and they would have that like little display case with a bunch of crap to buy in the front. What else we got here?
You could buy the salad dressing to go.
Got a Pac-Man.
NBA
What's that?
Jam.
NBA Jam. What's that one? I can't tell what that one is.
It looks like Mortal Kombat.
Is that a centipede there or pole position? Oh yeah. So they got it all there. I don't know that they have the fireplace. The question is, do they have the pizza? Do they have that pan pizza that had all the grease on the bottom that would like fry the crust to a crisp? It was just perfect. Oh, I got the Christmas
little
tree in
personal
there.
pan pizza too. Go in that little mini box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one time
that's good.
I didn't miss any spelling questions for a year, and I got a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
Wow.
And I
What a
wanted to go
prize.
get that thing.
Jeez.
I
Your
thought it was
move,
the
Berkwood.
Greatest, yeah, right. Greatest prize in the world. Spent that thing. That's your more, everybody.
It's time now for Throwdowns, presented by Heartland Tire and Auto.
Throwdowns. It's Throwdowns, backed by Heartland Tire and Auto.
That's right. Let's throw it down. Murph, Iowa State hasn't played an 11 a.m. game all season long. They will now play their most important game at 11 a.m. Is the 11 a.m. kickoff good or bad for the Cyclones?
I don't think it matters. I think that both teams are going to be ready for this. Whatever excuse might come out of the loser's locker room, it should not be the 11 a.m. kick. If anything, it's more difficult for Arizona State, because part of the year this equates to 9 a.m., and right now it equates to 10 a.m. So if anybody is at a disadvantage from a morning kick, it's the Sun Devils, not the Cyclones.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of a nice twist for Cyclone fans have been grousing about this. I just think the 11 a.m. game is better in this case. I mean, if you win, you party the rest of the day. If you lose, you got the rest of the day to get over it. I just think that it's time for this. Everybody will be fine with it.
Especially for the fans, that little ball of anxiety that would form and just sit there all day long. Yeah, it's good to have this at 11. Andy, Caleb Johnson has announced he is headed to the NFL after a stellar season in Iowa City. Where does KJ rank among Hawkeye running backs that you have watched?
I still feel like Sean Green was the best that I've seen in that uniform. I think I don't know if it's the way he ran. He ran a little bigger. I mean, Caleb Johnson is a big back. There's no doubt. They're both phenomenal backs, really are. And Caleb Johnson is an NFL back, and he's coming in at a good time in the NFL where they're seeing a bit of a resurgence. But I feel, to me, I just have a gut feeling is that what I saw from Sean Green was the best I've ever seen at that position.
Probably right. Recency bias has me thinking right now that it's Caleb Johnson, especially after that run he made in a big spot against Nebraska. I mean, Iowa's had so many great running backs
they have.
in my decades here. I mean, Fred Russell, Tavian Banks, Cedric Shaw. I mean,
Akram Wadley made some moves.
Akram Wadley, Brandon Wager was really good.
They've had some good ones, but I would say that Caleb Johnson looks the most NFL ready. And that's interesting because going into this year, we didn't have this kind of expectation for him. But he looks like an NFL running back playing in a college football game.
He was third, I think, on the depth chart and suspended for the first half of the first game of the season.
Forget about that first half suspension, right?
All right, Murph, it took some restraint, but I waited till December to put up Christmas decorations this year. This isn't a picture of my house, but I wish it was.
It's a lot of lights.
Murph, when did or when will you put up your Christmas decorations?
Went up this weekend. After Thanksgiving, that Friday, they went up. It was a lot of work. And thank you, Jenny.
Ours started going up on Thanksgiving. I did not get any exterior lighting done before the snow, and I fear this is going to set me back. Maybe like permanently set. I mean, they may not make it up outside.
Nah, you'll be good. This snow's going to melt,
really
and this weekend's going to be in the 40s. This
it
weekend
needs
be the
to melt,
time.
man. I'm not ready for the snow. I haven't got everything put away yet. But yeah, it's already started here. We also bought our real Christmas tree, which is in the backyard, frozen solid, which is good. That'll make it last longer when we bring it inside. But we've already bought it, so we didn't get totally shut out this year.
All right, that's Throwdowns.
All right, thank you, AD. It's time to remind you about the Grimaldi's fan photos. You send your fan photos to Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com. That's that email address that Andy did not have memorized. Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com. Each Friday, we pick a winner. Wait, isn't that?
Yeah,
isn't that the Wealth guys?
That's Tim Hawkins from Wealth Charter, taxing retirement. His son Blaine as well. They were braving the cold like you were, Murph, out there in Ames on Saturday night.
That's one. That looks. Is that a nice trapper hat?
Jeez,
with
the
ear flaps down. Those things are sweet. Oh, See, it didn't matter. You found a way to keep warm. Nobody cared how you looked.
This cross sponsorship here, can the Well Charter guys win the Grimaldi's pizza?
No, they can't. I wanted to throw that up there. Yeah, so keep your submissions coming. I have a feeling there are a lot of good photos out there from Friday night and Saturday night in Iowa City and in Ames. So shoot us those at Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com to enter to win this Friday.
Yeah, and then next week we should have some good ones coming in from AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Grandview has another playoff game coming up this weekend, so keep the fan photos coming. It is time for the Andrew Downs audio drop of the day. We call it the AD Squared.
Yeah, it's powered by Game Day Men's Health. I go to the one in Ankeny to get my testosterone booster each and every week. You can go to Ankeny, West Des Moines, North Liberty over in the eastern side of the state. Highly recommend this. It's really done wonders for me. I guess it was yesterday, the Steelers beat the Bengals. But running back Najee Harris was noticeably absent for a chunk of the first quarter. Nobody really knew why until he was asked about it in the postgame.
What happened when early in the game you kind of came up a little slow after one of the runs? You were on the sideline for a little bit, get checked out.
It's Thanksgiving. Pat's girlfriend Jill, she made this fire-ass little banana thing, and I had too much. So I guess that I didn't know it affected me until that first drive. So I blame her.
You shake it off and digest it, okay?
Yeah, I got some oranges and that was good.
That fire-ass little banana thing.
That should become a product. Fire-ass little banana thing.
What? Was it a pie or what?
I don't know what that was.
Was it a shake?
Bananas Foster, maybe?
Questions.
I don't know.
Fire-ass little banana
it was
thing?
Fire-ass little
It wasn't
banana
just
thing.
like a banana, was it?
AD, how long to get fire-ass little banana thing up at the merch store at iowaeverywhere.com?
It's up there right now.
Quickie poll results are presented by WCI Pools and Spas. The quickie poll is about the
It's about Nebraska's prayer before the game. What do you think
Yeah,
Nebraska
controversy.
intends when the team prays on the opponent's midfield logo? 21% are giving them the benefit of the extreme doubt here. Relationship with God, they say. 79% are like, nah, not playing. Antagonistic dominance.
We had several commenters from YouTube point out that was Matt Rule, who was the coach for Smack at the Jack in Ames back in the day. One of the more popular videos we've ever had on Sound Off.
The Smack at the Jack. We need
Smack at the Jack.
to look back at the Smack of the Jack.
Smack at the Jack. We can do that. Thank you for being part of Murph and Andy. It's local sponsors supporting local media here on Iowa Everywhere. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your Iowa Everywhere podcasts. We're back Wednesday. We hope you are too.